Well, you're going to have to not.
Somebody's in trouble.
Uh-oh.
See, that's what happens every week. All right.
Gets busted.
We are supposedly streaming live now, and we're streaming live because it's Saturday morning, afternoon, evening, and I want to say hello, or I should say hello.
Okay.
I know. Okay. It's a Halloween thing. Hey, it's time again for the Virtual Pipe Club's weekly meeting, and it's the special Halloween edition. This is all the guys in the Zoom room. Say hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. See, I just do that every week just to prove that I am not sitting in my mom's basement somewhere at the age of 64 and just streaming out. I have friends, Mom. Anyway, today's a very special day. As you can tell, I'm already off to a good start with the lighthearted approach to it. Very nice theme that we have today, being our Halloween edition. We have our special guest, our friend who's been back really more times than anybody else, but it's because he deserves to. And that's Shane Ireland from SmokingPipes.com. And we're going to talk about, well, you know what? I'm not going to tell you until we get ready. And that means you'll have to hang around. In the meantime, I would say that just to let everybody know, we have somebody over there on Facebook already said, Saints preserve us. It's Shane. That we are streaming live to Facebook and YouTube. And by the way, if you're watching from YouTube and you have not yet hit that subscribe button for whatever reason, I'm going to come to your house and haunt you. Just so to avoid that, hit that subscribe button right now, and then I won't say anything more about it. We're going to start first, though, with our weekly tradition, which is to go around the room and find out what everybody's smoking and what you're smoking it in. And where's my buddy Miguel? I saw him there a moment ago. Miguel, can I put you to work today, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right. If you would lead us on that voyage, that would be awesome. And gentlemen, you've already got your hands up, but for those of you who don't yet, do us a favor. And by the way, over there on Facebook and YouTube, if you wouldn't mind, love to know what you're smoking today too, man. So throw that up and yeah, let's do it. Miguel, it's up to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all my friends all over the world. Happy Halloween. And Shane, thank you for being here again. We do really appreciate it, sir. I'm smoking today. This is a Radice Rhine with Ampora, Virginia. And after that, I will smoke the Tom Eltang pencil shank.
Miguel, your other right hand. Your other
Wrong
right.
hand.
My other right hand.
Your other right.
Son of a gun, I'm too old for this shit. I was like, oh, there you go. There we go. And I'll smoke that with salty dogs. This one. There we go. Yeah. And I'll pass the Beer 12 Pipe Club to Mr. David Klein.
Thank you, Miguel. And just one more time, I'm very impressed by the photos you post on Facebook on the group's page. I want to come over to your house and get into your liquor cabinet. I'll tell you, it looks good.
Thank you, sir. I'm getting help. I attend all my AA meeting, but yeah, thank you. Just kidding.
Nice. Well, I'm smoking my, this is a Chacom Nougat, number 275. And in it, I've stuffed in some Escudo. I'm enjoying that. When I finish that, I'm going to smoke my Bjarni, which I've had for a long time. And in that, I'm going to smoke some plum pudding. So I'm looking forward to a good couple of hours here. So thank you for that. And I'm going to pass the pipe over to Dmitry Sasov.
Hello, everybody. Well, I'm still finishing my cigar. It's from Hennessy Cigars, Barber Pole. And I have my pipes ready. I have one of my cubs. It's Sesky Sweet Cub pipe. It's not the largest cub that I have. I have no idea who made this, but it's pretty old. And I also have this calabash ready. And I have my McClelland Rose of Latakia 2013 with the Syrian Latakia. And Park Lane number 15. English with Rick, that's from Paul Bonacristi, upstate New York. And let me pass pipe to Janos.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Janos.
Can you listen to me? Okay.
We can hear you.
Today I smoke one of my creation, which is okay, and I'm going classic today. I choose standard mixture by downhill and toast with wine. It's almost 9 o'clock at night today. Now, and I will pass the pipe to just a moment to find someone.
Yeah, by the way, I have perfect Halloween beer. Samuel Adams Jack
Okay.
or pumpkin ale.
Okay, beer for the morning.
All right,
Okay,
brother.
I pass the pipe to the team.
Thank you, Janos. Welcome again. And today we're starting off. I'm smoking my most spooky pipe. It is a Mostro de Paya, and it's got some wax strip. I bought this from Ernie at Wash City, and they called it the bloody eyeball pipe because it's just got all these different things. It's rusticated. It has wax strip. It's got a silver band. I mean, I think they did everything they could to this pipe to make it interesting. And in it, I'm smoking Ken Byron Ventures Moriarty, which is a very interesting blend. Haven't quite figured it out just yet. It's my second time smoking it, but it's very good. And after that, probably going to move on to something less spooky, probably a Peterson with some London mixture or Regent's Flake. I don't know. I'm thinking Oriental today. So that said, I'm going to pass the virtual pipe over to David Johnson.
And by the way, I have to say that the Moriarty is a great selection. I almost grabbed a jar of it myself for this morning. And does Ernie have any more of those bloody eyeballs? Because I think I need to get one.
I haven't seen one of these anywhere since I bought it. So I've looked around. I just haven't seen it. It's probably pretty unique.
Thank you very much, Tim. I got a little jewel in the mail the other day. I can't see my picture. I don't know whether I'm not coming through.
Oh, yeah.
Stop it, relax.
We see you just fine.
Once upon a time.
I'm looking for my pretty face so I can figure out what I'm showing you. Abdul Karim made that, and he calls it the Nautilus. And let me tell you what, it is smooth. Boy, I'll tell you what, it is a nice smoking pipe. And yeah, it's well worth every penny. Broke the bank paying for it, but that's okay. The man does. Anybody, David, DDR can attest to this. Anybody who wants a good quality pipe at a reasonable price, he puts all the love and care in it, and he put a lot of, it doesn't look like it, but there's a lot of handwork in this thing.
Yeah, his pipes are so wonderfully detailed, and he does put a lot of work in it. I always buy them for the unique shapes that he makes, but he also makes very classic shapes too. So, he does commissions regularly, and if you wanted a classic shape or, a nautilus or a iguana, he's got a new one out called Godzilla's Tail. So,
There you go.
yeah, got a lot of good stuff.
Yeah. He's polished the top here. He's polished the top here so well. It almost looks like plastic. It's amazing. The detail is absolutely amazing. Anyway, I'll be smoking this today. Right now, I'm smoking my little shortstop. And it's early in the morning. I, grab a little taste for start the day, but then I'll be smoking this one later on. And then I'll probably move on to one of my Nordies, maybe my panel. And beyond that, let's see. I am going to pass, let's see, how about John Trophy? John?
Good morning,
Go.
guys. Good evening. Today I'm be smoking, starting off with a Whistler's pipe. And then my second pipe, I'll be smoking some Haunted Bookshop in a Nording. And then I also have the cob that was sent to me. And we're going to be reviewing the Scarecrow. And I'm also sporting, I don't know if you can see it or not, I'm also sporting in honor of Shane, my Smoking Pipes hat. With that, I'll pass the virtual pipe over to Tim Heineck.
Thank you, but I've already went. I've already gone. Or have pick someone else. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll get my hand down here.
Tim, John's got a little bit of a
Mike
internet
Rizzo, I'm sorry.
problem. Why don't you pick somebody, Tim?
Okay, how about Randall?
Randall, you're on mute there, brother.
Randall.
There we go. Happy Halloween to everybody. Hope you're doing fine. We got a beautiful sunny day. Last warm one for the week. Well, kind of warm, 50s. They're talking lower 40s all next week. So, well, good Latakia weather. Speaking of that, I've got my raffle pipe, my favorite raffle pipe, the Chacom 1202. And in it, some Watch City's pipe and cigars, Ahab's Comfort. I really, really, really like that tobacco. It's a really great Latakia blend. Get you going, so to speak. And let's see. Justin, how are you? You're right next to me on the screen here.
Hello, everybody. Today I'm smoking a little C&D's Miskatonic mixture in keeping with the season in one of my Roma church wardens. I really like these pipes. Okay. How about we pass the pipe to Pablo?
Hi, everybody from New York, where it's gloomy, and it was nice in the morning, and now it got overcast again. And excuse the noise from 36th Street over here to my right. I am smoking a Eric Stoicaby pipe, and in it I have some of Cornell and Deal's Mississippi Mud. It's a very interesting blend, very, very full, but actually quite smooth. I find overall very pleasant. And then after that, I will switch to my trusty Costello, and we'll try what is kind of becoming one of my go-tos for when I want something that is going to just be very pleasing on the palate, which is St. Bruno, which is just a great thing to. There's a park nearby here, near the United Nations, where it's like a very picturesque little park, and there are some benches outside. And the day I went there was some St. Bruno, and I just had a really great time, and didn't get too many complaints from people walking by. So, all right, great. So I will pass it to. What about Marco Buono?
Hello, from Denmark. I'm smoking my Mike Bay with a rustication. I think he called a pumpkin. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. And in it, I'm smoking dark strong.
It's a beautiful pipe.
Yeah, it's a nice one. He doesn't make this rustication. I haven't seen it in some years, but this pumpkin thing is very cool, I think. Let me pass the pipe to David.
Thank you, Marco. Today I'm smoking my Rinaldi Devilance. You've probably seen this one a couple of times with beautiful grain. And I'm finishing, or about to finish, one of my last flakes of these Formers vapor, the mid cross grain, which is the mid size of the three of them. I don't know if you can notice because I cannot compare, but it's a wider flake. If you compare the normal ones, are probably this small, this much. And I tend to only smoke every 2-3 hours per pipe, so I think this is enough for me today. Let's see who's next. Stephen Emes.
Thank you, David. Well, today I've got my club pipe, and in it I have some Solani aged burley, and then the Cobb Strong pipe that I just got in recently, and I've got some Orlick Golden Slice. And then for our mystery tobacco, I put that in my Charlestown Cobbler. And I do have a quick question for Shane. Orlick stopped doing the Dark Strong, and I guess Peter Heinrich's the only one doing it, but you can't find it anywhere. Are they going to keep doing that?
Yes, it is still in production. That's one of those products that historically has always been made for a different market aside from the US. So I'm sure some of you probably remember that there was like a 10-year gap where we had it in the early and mid 2000s in like a 200 gram tall boy can, and then it wasn't available in the US for a very long time. And then it came back in the 50 gram tins, I think around 2015 or 2016, but they've been unavailable for a while now. But yeah, I'm being told that Peter Heinrichs is still going to produce the flake. There's also likely to be a very similar product put out by a different brand that I won't mention just yet. But yeah, you should be able to find something that'll fill that gap nicely pretty soon.
No, very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why don't I pass the pipe to our good friend down there in San Diego, Bud?
Thanks, Stephen. Today I'm smoking a couple of Matt Drescher pipes. They are, he does handmade pipes and just really good smokers. And I'm smoking some, right now I'm smoking some of the small batch From Beyond. And the next pipe is going to have some of the Seattle Pipe Club's Mississippi River Special Reserve Flake. And I will pass the pipe on to Mike Rizzo.
Thanks, Bud. Appreciate it. What's up, everybody? Hope everybody's doing well. Today, I'm smoking my Pavel Halub Ecclesias rusticated Lavat. In that, I'm smoking some Warped Red Hunt, which is my favorite blend from Kyle and Jeremy. And then after that, I will be smoking the Danish Pipe Shop 50th anniversary Dan Pipe Reborn with some Dan Tobacco St. Bernard flake, which I just got from a buddy in Germany, which is easily come one of my favorite vapors. And Shane, whenever you get, I was wondering if there's some good Dan blends out there that aren't available in the States. I also have the Mallard Flake Plus Perique, which is really good. And I think you can only get that directly from Dan. But is there any reason why some Dan blends aren't available in the States and some are?
You know, before the latest FDA crackdown in 2016, it was likely due to either production constraints or just demand in general. I mean, at a certain point, most of the distributors in the US for a very long time were the ones that were making the decisions about what they wanted to carry and what they didn't want to carry. So in the case of certain products, they could be like thinking, and I'm just guessing here, and this goes back decades, they could have been thinking like, okay, I don't want to cannibalize sales of this product by bringing in this product. A lot of distributors had sort of like an intentionally lean portfolio for a number of years. And keep in mind that a lot of this stuff, when it was being brought to market, it was either just before the sort of like new wave of pipe smoking and renaissance that the online community brought to the market in the US, or it was in the early days of that. So I think that all of those companies, including ourselves, you know, if we could have all seen what pipe smoking would have looked like in the late 2010s and early 2020s, I think everybody would have been bringing a lot more stuff to market before the grandfathered cutoff. So at this point, if it's not available here, it's probably because of regulatory reasons. But before, companies just kind of made decisions about what they thought was a good product for a certain market and what they didn't. And we're just left with what we're left with at this point.
Awesome.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
I just have to, go the long route through friends in Germany.
I was going to say, that's why I always have like a lot of suitcase space whenever I'm in Europe, because there's a bunch of stuff over there that you can only grab in person, and hey, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, the same thing you're talking about with the, a lot of the HU blends.
Mhm.
This
Yeah,
Red Fox is another one. But John in North Carolina, how are you doing there, sir?
Thank you, Mike. I'm doing well. Wonderful day here in North Carolina. It's finally getting cool for us. I mean, by cool, I mean cool into the 40s, because we're in mid-Atlantic. We kind of get what blows in. So I hope everyone is doing well. Today I'm smoking some of my old-time favorites from a long time ago. It's called, probably won't show up because of the background. It's Cake Box by Levitt and Pierce, which is the other Cambridge tobacconist, and I'm smoking this in one of my older Petersons. So let me pass this on to, I guess, Glenn.
Hi, everyone. Hope everyone got the mute there. Hope everyone's doing well today. I'm smoking today one of my older meerschaum pipes from Pioneer. It's a black meerschaum and rusticated, and people swear when they see it that it's a briar pipe, but it's an old, nice black meerschaum. And I'm smoking some of my velvet that was removed from the tin in 2009 and has been in my jar since then. So old pipe, old tobacco, both of them doing well. And let's see, how about on to Dennis? Still got his hand up.
Hello, everyone. Got a Missouri Meerschaum Marcus in here, and I don't like short stems, so I put the longer stem on it, which works better. And experimenting with AJ's Vapor, Louisiana Red, AJ's Vapor. I'm flip-flopping between those two as far as a standard everyday, relatively cheap vapor. And I may have to buy both. They're both pretty good. What can I say, guys? The variety of tobaccos out there is why this stuff is so much fun. What can I say? Let's see. Mr. Spent and his bony companion sitting behind him. Take over, sir.
Thanks, Dennis. Hi, everybody. Happy All Hallows Eve to all of you. Give me that back. Bogarting my pipe. Some haunted bookshop today in my all black sandblast Dan pipe seemed appropriate. If I can just keep it away from this fellow. Good to see everybody. Andrew Srigliano, how are you doing, bud?
I'm doing good, thank you. Been a while. Glad to be back. Today, actually, I'm from a different location here today, and I'm a little disappointed that I missed your meeting last time with Bill because I'm a big fan of the K. Woody pipes, and I actually get to go to the Park Lane Tobacconist quite a bit. And today, it's not going to do it justice, but I'm smoking a K. Woody Unique Billiard, which has just got a blast on it that is absolutely gorgeous, and I couldn't pass it up. And some haunting in it, which I really enjoy. And I also want to just mention, especially with Shane on, I just picked up, I've been loving the PFB blast on the Peterson. And I just got this, again, you won't make it out because of the lighting, but this absolutely beautiful deluxe system 11, which just has a blast on it for days. And it's just a gorgeous pipe and actually very quenchable. Based because of the style, you wouldn't think so with the size, but it's a beautiful pipe.
Nice.
Guys, I'm going to pass it all to Ken. You there, Kent? You on mute?
I am here. Thank you, Andrew. I am actually on the in the valley below Dracula's castle, if you can see it in the background, and smoking a blood red freehand from Thompson, I think Jeremy Thompson, a carver on the East Coast, and a blood red lighter as well. And if I survive, I'll switch to some other pipes and some other blends. So looking forward to an All Saints Day coming up, and pass the pipe to Perry Spiropoulos.
Thanks, Kent. Today's KBV tobacco morning for me too. I've got some Notorious in this Castello C-Rock Billiard, and that's kind of a blend of Latakia and Burley, heavy on the Latakia. So I'm kind of looking forward to enjoying that, and that'll be followed by an Asteriu Liverpool with Dark-Fired Cherry in it. And I believe both these pipes originally came from Smoking Pipes, Shane, so thank you.
Nice.
Let's see, I'll pass the virtual pipe on to Shane. Go ahead, Shane.
Hey, everybody. I am the first pipe I have ready to go here. I already, a little bit of a ways into the bowl past the charring light is Warped Scarecrow, which I have been smoking a lot since its release earlier this month. And I've been smoking it quite frequently in various cobs. I do have a few briars, and actually I think it smokes really, really well in a meerschaum as well. But this pipe loves Warped Scarecrow. That's the Missouri Meerschaum Cornell and Deal collaboration, Charlestown Cobbler. And if I have time for another pipe after that, I have also been smoking my Smoking Pipes 20th anniversary Peterson Spigot Silver Cap. Crazy good blast on this one as well. Hopefully you can see that. And the tobacco that is pretty much dominating my rotation, Virginia-wise, is some 2014 Solani 660 Silver Flake. I've smoked a lot of the Solani back when it was still in the Mylar bags from like 2005 to 2007. And at like 10 plus years old, it's incredible. But right now, this 2014 vintage, which I'm glad I put a bunch of jars away back then, it's smoking so great. It's all I can smoke Virginia-wise these days. But yeah, mixing it up a little bit. I'm not much of an aromatic smoker, but Scarecrow, I think, is specifically designed for guys like me. And it is my favorite aromatic, hands down, definitely of the moment.
Those Solani bags, I bought a few from of the 633 from 2008 in the Mylar bags. man, the Virginias when they have that
Unbelievable.
is amazing.
I really think those Mylar bags are like the best way to age tobacco long term, as long as you don't like crinkle them up too much because they can split in the corners like the Esoterica bags do.
Yeah.
But man, every one of those tins, like I used to walk around like the Chicago show or whatever, and like if you could open the outer silver tins and look inside and see those Mylar bags, guaranteed it's going to be an incredible smoke.
That's what I was worried about when I bought them. I didn't know that they did that. So I was like, I'm probably going to have to rehydrate it. And I cracked it and I was like, thank you, Lord. And it was fresh as can be. And it was
so good. Yeah, so good. I don't know how much oxygen they leave in those bags when they used to seal them, but it seems to be like the perfect amount.
Yeah.
It's kind of a bummer that when you buy those tins now, you have to move them immediately to a mason jar, but they also age really well in a jar.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah.
So Shane, you've got to pick the next smoker.
Oh yes, you're right. Sorry, I thought I might be the last one here.
Yeah, there's three there. Shane, one is Paolo Passeri from Italy. Is
okay.
There.
Oh, sorry about that, Paolo. I couldn't see your hand.
Oh,
Let's pass it to Paolo then.
Berlin.
And Berlin.
Good old pipe. I told you, with a Presbyterian. Thanks. And I passed to Fred.
Yeah. Dave DeMoss is habit.
Okay.
Hello, Dave. You on? I think you're on mute, Dave.
Oh,
there you go.
Don't have my hand raised. I wasn't expecting anything.
That's okay.
Because I don't see any hands up, so I wouldn't know who I would call next. But I'm not smoking anything because I'm stuck inside because it's raining and cold.
And then I think the last one will be Fred. Fred?
Hi, guys. I'm smoking my, if you can see it, my Missouri Meerschaum with a forever stem. Not smoking, I'm inside, but I will be smoking that with my early morning match and waiting to open my package from David. So looking forward to that. And I guess if I'm the last one, I'll pass it to DDR.
Well, I'm sitting here busily typing away to talk to all the guys over there on Facebook and YouTube. Quite a lot of other pipes and blends going on. Every week I get new ideas. I'm like, okay. And by the way, there are some others over there on the live stream who have got some Scarecrow standing by, so they're going to participate as well. Scarecrow is the topic of the day, but I'm holding back on my Scarecrow for just a moment. And first, this is definitely my most creepy pipe that I have. This is the Bone Crawler from Chris Kelly, Eldritch Pipes.
Oh my God!
I know.
That's wild.
Is this wild?
I was gonna ask what is it made of, but I should ask who is it made?
Who is it made of? That's right. Well, he's keeping silent on that one so that he doesn't implicate himself. So that's. But someone definitely donated to make this pipe, and in it, I'm actually smoking some 8-state burley because I think it's actually quite complementary to Scarecrow. So it's a good sort of palate warmer upper in a way for that. I was gonna pick Moriarty. Tim, was it you that said you were smoking Moriarty today?
Yes.
Yeah. Great choice. I had it in my hand as I was moving the jars around to find my 8-state burley, and I almost picked it because it seemed appropriate for today. But as soon as we start moving over to, those of you who haven't seen the Facebook post screen, can you not see the resemblance there? just seem. Anyway, so when we move over to, I'm going to be.
You want Shane to come back again, right, David?
I was just going to say that this will be the last time Shane shows up. Thanks, David.
You know I love you, Shane. But here's my second creepiest pipe, and it doesn't look that creepy, but it's called the Slender Man.
Ooh.
Yeah, Andrew, I'm surprised that you don't have yours.
I knew you were going to say, I'm traveling right now, David, and I didn't bring it with me because it's a hard one to travel with, given its size. But I knew you were going to say that. I'm missing it.
Yeah. So this is what I'm going to be smoking Scarecrow in. And the thing about, like, it's a very, it looks large. It's a well-sized pipe, but the chamber is actually relatively small. So it's a good sampling kind of pipe as well. So that's what I got. And over there, this is the scariest part of the day for me. And I have to acknowledge that I'm old enough now that I have to have glasses to do this. I'm just looking back to see some of the things that other people are smoking. And one of the guys over there is smoking Nightcap in his smooth bent La Rocal. And I said, on Halloween, it's called Nightcap Mushroom. Trying to extend the metaphor there. Anyway, so in a moment here, we're going to turn this over to our special guest. Oh, we have Viva Club Mexico says, greetings from Mexico. So again, the smoking club from around the world. Shane Ireland from smokingpipes.com is our special guest today. And we get to rib him because he's been here so often that he's an official a host of the Virtual Pipe Club. So he gets the inside circle ribbing. But we are definitely fortunate to have him back again. And so we've been trying to plan something like this for months, to have some kind of tasting clinic tutorial conversation about, like when you open a tin of tobacco, especially something brand new, how do you begin the whole tasting process? How do you discern all those little nuances and flavors? And Shane's one of the people that I respect the most because he tastes stuff that I have no idea where he's getting it from, but I trust that it's there. But he does have a very, very refined palate. And I think this is a good one to talk about because it's got a lot of different things inside of it. So it's a very nuanced tobacco. And Shane, I'm predicting that we'll have a bit of an aside with Mike Rizzo today because he claims that it's terrible and I claim that it's wonderful. So
not my cup of tea.
Having said all that, I'm going to turn it over to Shane.
I tried.
I mean,
it's just not for me. But that's
on paper, I would agree with you. I mean, I'm well known, like dedicated Virginia and Virginia Perique smoker. I do enjoy the occasional English blend, but not nearly as frequently as I used to. And typically anything that is aromatic or flavored, I'm hesitant to try. I've been kind of forcing myself to revisit some higher end premium aromatics like the Sillams mixtures, because it's been a lot of years and I'm trying to make sure that like my tastes haven't changed. And I also think that it is very, very true and starting to become more widely accepted that if you're not an aromatic smoker because you've been going down the Virginia road, the Burley road, the Latakia road for many years, you probably owe it to yourself to revisit some aromatic blends now that your technique is a lot better. I think a lot of us start off with aromatic stuff because that's what's recommended and because that's kind of what we all think of when we think of pipe tobacco. But I think that the real tricky part with aromatics are twofold. One, depending on how they're made and who made them, they may not have super, super premium tobaccos as a base, just because why flavor something that's like so good? And I'll get back to that in a second. And the other reason is because typically they require a little bit more skill and a little bit more patience to get right. I mean, you just want to go nuts, freight train it, and get that beautiful aroma in the flavor as well. And it just never goes down that way. So I think that going back and revisiting some stuff has taught me to maybe slow down even more than I'm used to with my Virginias when I'm smoking aromatic mixtures, to give them a tiny bit of drying time, but not too much. I mean, there's kind of a lot of technique that goes into smoking aromatics properly. And I would still say that my main focus and what I crave most often are red Virginias, Virginia Periques, and maybe some Burley Flakes. That's just always going to be what my go-to smokes are. But Scarecrow surprised me because I am fortunate enough to work very close with Jeremy on a lot of these projects. So when him and Kyle are going back and forth on these blends and trying different things out, I'm usually in close proximity and I can try them out as well. And I think that we all agreed immediately that the concept for Scarecrow and this sort of crossover aromatic mixture, and how can you take an aromatic mixture and elevate it really highly, which Cornell and Deal has a history of doing, I might add. I mean, from producing their own red Virginia Cavendish and using all natural flavorings and high quality leaf. This is something that's not new to them. But like I said, personally and selfishly, when the Scarecrow project started to come together, I wasn't nearly as excited as I was for the Haunting or for the Red Hunt or for Until the End. So when I started smoking through some of the samples, I kind of immediately got what those two guys were going for. And the final product, when I popped the first tin that I smoked in preparation for the Tasting Notes video, I was blown away. Really, I felt kind of bad because here I am telling Jeremy oh my God, I can't believe that this is the final version and this is so good. And at a certain point I was actually, maybe that's insulting because he definitely, both of them definitely tried to get to this point. I just didn't expect it to like it nearly as much as I did. And when I first opened the tin, I think this probably is the experience of many people that have smoked it so far. It's very, very rich. The aroma is very, very strong. I would argue that it's not quite into cloying territory because it doesn't smell artificial to me personally. Maybe immediately after you pop it, but after it's been open for a day or so, I really do get a lot of just caramelized sugar. And yes, I do get some of I don't agree with the candy corn assessment personally, because candy corn to me just doesn't smell good at all, but it does remind me of kettle corn. It does remind me of sweet popcorn and high corn mash bill whiskey and bourbon. There's the vanilla notes, there's the caramel notes. But I
was thinking about this cloying aspect of it because it is a kick in the face when you first open the tin and you get that first tin note, but it doesn't linger. That's the thing. It's
Right.
It doesn't stick to your nose. And so it goes away pretty quickly and then you can get on to something better.
Right. And I think even in the tin note, it gives you a good idea of what the smoke is going to be like because I can smell the earthiness. I can smell the burleys. I can smell the bready quality and a little bit of the grassy quality from the Virginias. But really, it's just super rich, mostly caramel and vanilla type of notes for me. Maybe a little bit of a boozy character as well.
Okay, let me pause you right there for just a second. So, because I want to maybe engage everybody in talking through the process of tasting, which will begin with wine or tea or whatever, with the nose, right? With the tin note.
Yeah.
So, one step beyond just saying this is what I smell, speaking to us who don't have the sophisticated palate, how do you begin to pick apart the different individual ingredients that make up the overall aroma?
That's one of those things where I have been to tasting classes on wine and whiskey and cigars. And there are techniques you can use. Guys out there that might be really into whiskey letting a little bit of it hit your tongue at first and letting that alcohol dissipate. And what you're left with is like the actual flavor. A lot of wine tasters, and also with whiskey glasses, especially like fluted whiskey glasses, if you try to smell to the side of the glass, it helps you a little bit because it kind of lets you get past the alcohol. There's also glasses designed specifically to allow the alcohol vapors to sort of flow out from the side. And then if you smell right in the center of the glass, you can get the full aroma. So unfortunately, with like tins of pipe tobacco, there is not really anything designed specifically to highlight the nose. You kind of just have to figure out what works for you. For me personally, and I do this when I am preparing for the tasting notes video, first of all, I think having a clean nasal cavity and a clean palate are like really important. And to DDR's point earlier about smoking 8-state burley, I think that's actually a really good choice as a warm-up smoke because unlike something that has a lot of latakia in it or even a lot of perique in it or a really distinct, top note or casing, something like 8-state burley is not going to leave you with like a lingering, aroma and coating on your palate. So what I think is most important here is I think people try to pick out these notes instead of letting them come naturally. All of this tasting stuff is highly personal. And I've said it before that I try to give notes that are, rich in context and like in the sort of vernacular that we all discuss. You're talking about cigars, leather and spice and white pepper and blah, blah, blah. And we say those kind of things over and over and over again in reviews because they are benchmarks of flavor and aroma that a lot of people can recognize. I could get into, some really specific to my childhood and some, confections that my grandmother used to make that half of you guys here may not know about or have ever tasted. Probably all of you have never tasted my grandmother's baking. But the point is, try to go to that place for yourself personally and try to see if you can, if any of these aromas elicit something that's really specific, really esoteric, and really like specific to yourself. And then you can kind of translate that into flavors that other people might recognize or might know. But I think also taking slow, deep breaths, pulling the tin away from my nose for a moment and breathing in again, returning to it as many times as I need to. Because usually the first couple times that I stick my nose in a glass of whiskey or a glass of wine or a tin of tobacco, I get really broad and really general things that are hard to pick out. And it's not until you kind of revisit it a bunch of times that you can sort of feel the layers. And they talk about it in like perfumery as well. Like the base and the heart and the top notes, like you got to try to focus on different parts of the register and you just can't do that in one whiff. You know what I mean? So I think patience is maybe the most important thing, both with tasting and with picking up the nose of a particular consumable. You just have to be patient and you have to like be patient with yourself and not try to force like all of these, loquacious descriptions about everything that you're tasting and smelling. It can be very general terms, and most times it is. And
so let me ask you. I have like a not quite a fully formed theory, but sort of a curiosity. I watch way too much TikTok, and so there's a meme going on right now where you listen to some words being spoken in the background and you're reading this list of phrases, and depending on what's going on in the background, you either hear like, my mom is dead, or the sky is red, or my brother's name is Fred, depending on what and like when you first said that you don't smell candy corn, I think we were there in Richmond when we were talking about this, and you said you smelled caramel corn instead, or kettle corn rather. Like when I opened this up, like boom, candy corn, unmistakable. But then as you started saying that, I'm like, it's turning into kettle corn. Why? And it's that power of suggestion kind of thing. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, if you guys have ever watched any of the mystery tobacco reviews or mystery cigar reviews, one of the things that makes it challenging is that we can talk each other out of our own impressions because the power of suggestion is really powerful. And for me, I'll be honest here, maybe my perception that this smells more like kettle corn than candy corn to me is because I have warmer, my memories of kettle corn are more warm and fuzzy than my memories of candy corn. I kind of despise candy corn. So it could be that subconsciously or consciously in this case, I'm sort of refusing that that's what I'm smelling here. I need to like connect it to a different memory and to a different olfactory response for me to find it enjoyable and to pick out the stuff that I like and that I'm interested in here. I can see where people get candy corn from, but yeah, candy corn to me just smells super, super sweet and artificial. And this actually smells a little more authentically sweet to me, a little more natural. But yeah, the power of suggestion is a huge thing. And I think we do it to ourselves as well. Like you get a certain idea in your head about what you're tasting or what you're smelling, and then that's all you can taste and smell. And I think that's why it's important to try stuff in a variety of different pipes at different times of day. And like I said, with as clean of a palate as you possibly can, because yeah, I mean, clarity is the one thing here that makes it easier to pick up the nuance. Like, honestly, I will never smoke a super well-aged tobacco or a very fine cigar at the end of the day when I've already been smoking all day. I just rarely ever do that because I know that it's a lot more valuable in those instances to smoke something that I'm familiar with and that I can enjoy regardless of whether or not my palate is at 100% at that point in the day.
So what other, in just a moment, I'm going to open it up to questions for the whole group here, including you guys over there on the live stream. But before I get into that, I thought I will tease out of Shane some of the other tastes and flavors that he gets from that tin note. And then we can talk about the tin note before we go on to the first light. How's that sound? So what else do you get, man?
What else do I get? And here's one more thing that I was going to say, particularly with tobaccos that are in flake form or cake form as this is. I also try to pick up a little bit different of a tin note. I think that aeration is really important when you're like rubbing out a flake or even a ready rub that's slightly too chunky or a crumble cake. So sometimes for me, drying time, when I say I'm giving it 2 or 3 minutes, I'm giving it 2 or 3 minutes of like loosely breaking it up, kind of mixing it around a little bit, letting it aerate a tiny bit. And then I always try to check how that changes the aroma as well before I start smoking. So the Scarecrow, like I said, caramel and vanilla notes, big time. I've said this before of like certain rye whiskeys and certain aromatic tobaccos, but if anybody's familiar with the candy cow tails, this reminds me of that quite a bit. Even salted caramel. This tastes like salted caramel ice cream, like a vanilla ice cream that has that salted caramel thing added to it. It reminds me of that quite a bit. And underneath the sweeter notes, what I get is a healthy dose of earth. It's very faint and it's very in the background. There's also a little bit of those red fruit, darker red fruit and like stewed fruit kind of a sweetness. I think that's the red Virginias here and the stove red Virginias that's doing that to me. But if it wasn't for the sort of big caramel and vanilla notes and like that sort of bourbony kind of quality, I would also guess that this was maybe a Virginia Perique because of those like fruity notes. And there's also just a really healthy amount of like that fermented hay, that like matured grassy kind of a flavor and a bready quality too here. I do get some of those sourdough bread notes that I get from really tangy ripe red Virginias. But yeah, I mean, you can kind of go on and on and on about what you're picking up. I also think that maybe in the best way, and this is the weirdest one I'm going to throw out there, maybe in the best way, once I've broken this up and aerated it a little bit, some of those darker fruit notes and some of those sweet notes actually turn into like a little bit of a cherry cough syrup for me. Like earthiness and a medicinal flavor like go hand in hand in a lot of different things, like whiskey, for example. So I do get like just a faint bit of that medicinal character that I find enjoyable. But then again, I'm like a Lefroy guy, so smoky and medicinal and sharp flavors, I really like them. Mostly, I just think that the tin note here is super complex. It is not a one-trick pony like many aromatic mixtures are, and I feel the same way about the flavor.
All right. I was joining you with just kind of breaking that up and trying to get a bit of a pre-smoke aroma out of that. And you're right, it is amazingly complex because just the moment that you begin to identify one, like, okay, I put my finger on that, then it like travels off and does something else to your nose there. But let me open it up to...
I was going to say, as soon as I break this one up, the really big kettle corn and caramel and vanilla notes, they dissipate so quickly. I really do get a lot more earthiness and fruity flavors once it's been rubbed out.
Let's open it up to some questions, and I don't know why I just froze up there like that. Let's open up to some other questions from you guys in the Zoom room while I go fix my camera.
Yeah, I have a question, Shane. Do you have any tips for cleansing your palate? Like, should I be eating pickled ginger and wasabi, or
see
drinking
that's
some
interesting?
seltzer? Or
yeah, seltzer's a great place to start. I do a lot of just still water myself personally, but seltzer is good. And honestly, I think that especially if you're intentionally trying to like write a review of something, in my opinion, and I think this is not like, that unique or groundbreaking, like your olfactory sense is way more important when you're trying to pick out nuance in a blend. That's why I think retrohaling is so important. When I am like really, really seriously trying to gather my thoughts intentionally and not just casually smoking something, I do this with cigars as well. Honestly, the coffee bean trick works really, really well. I think most of us probably have coffee beans lying around. But yeah, if you just take a whiff of some coffee beans and then you can go back immediately to your tin note or even the aroma of the pipe or even the retrohale, I find that is the best for me personally. I think it does affect my palate a little bit as well, but mostly it's the olfactory sense. And like I said, retrohale is where I get all of my complexity and all of like the nuance. So I don't even bother smoking if I'm like under the weather at all, because without the nose, I just can't taste anything. I know people that are different. I know people that really their palate is a lot sharper than their olfactory sense, but I'm not one of those. I need my nose or I can't taste anything.
all right, thank you.
I just got
I'm curious,
go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Shane, I just wanted to get your thoughts a little more on when you're talking about like dry, the moisture content of the tobacco, and there's a lot of discussion about, I think like Per Jensen and others have said that the blenders put the tobacco in a tin the way they want you to smoke it. And I mean, obviously people, like your tobacco in different ways, but I'm curious your thoughts on that. Knowing Jeremy, what do you think about, drying time and when you take it out of the tin right away?
I think that there are companies out there that put their product in the tin at exactly the right moisture content. I would say most. Now, I think that any of you that have been around a long time too, there was a period where, when Sam Gaywith was all the rage. I mean, arguably still is all the rage, but in the early to mid 2000s, when the first sort of, supply shortage of Gaywith products happened, or at least the first that I can remember in the last 20 years, there was a lot of people talking about the moisture content of the Gaywith flakes at the time. And I was in the camp where I had to give them a significant amount of drying time in order to enjoy them at all. Because I found that if I smoked them straight out of the tin and they were too moist, that I ended up smoking too hot and really losing a lot of the flavor. Now, the balance to be struck here is you neither want it too dry nor too moist. Too moist and it'll be hard to combust, obviously, and then you're going to end up over puffing and burning off all those oils that you're trying to preserve by keeping it moist. And too dry and all the oils are gone before you've even started, and you're going to get like a lot more monochromatic and boring experience. I do know some people that love their tobacco crispy, and that's fine. I used to dry out my tobacco more than I do now. And I find now that I usually just give it a couple of minutes. Like I can't remember the last time that I dried out a tobacco intentionally, because we all do that by accident for sure sometimes. But intentionally, I can't remember the last time that I dried out any tobacco for more than 3 to 5 minutes. It kind of just depends too. And I think that both Per and Jeremy, McBaron and Cornell and Deal respectively, put their tobacco in the tin pretty much at the perfect moisture content. I also find most of the Orlik made products and most of the Kohlhaas and Kopp made products to be really damn near perfect right out of the tin. But it kind of just depends. I mean, I've always done the like pinch test. Like if I give this a pinch and it sticks together for like 3 to 5 seconds and it's not coming apart, then that's a little too moist for me. What I like to see is just a little bit of unfurling immediately. And if it's too crispy, and you can feel that to the touch, if it's too crispy, then I've overdone it. So like I said, I think especially if you're smoking a lot of cakes, flakes, plugs, giving the tobacco a little bit of aeration is more important than like losing a lot of the moisture. But I think it's probably a good place to start with any manufacturer to just smoke it directly out of the tin and see how that goes. And then you can kind of adjust from there. And yeah, the sweet spot for me is a very narrow range of dry time and, versus no dry time at all. So I don't know if that's terribly helpful, because I think this is one of those things that's kind of highly personal as well. A lot of it has to do with the technique of the smoker, like how much of a puffer you are. If you're really puffing away, then a little bit of extra moisture could help you. But you are likely to end up with more dottle at the end of the bowl and with moisture in your shank. You want to make sure that you can put a pipe cleaner through at that point. And if you're a really slow smoker, I think that a drier tobacco can be pretty forgiving if you're very slow. So yeah, it's just a troubleshooting thing. It's one of the parts of the learning curve of pipe smoking that like never really goes away, no matter how experienced you are, unless you're smoking a tobacco that you know very, very well. But my last little bit on that is that you mentioned that manufacturers specifically put the tobacco in the tin at the moisture level that they intend for you to smoke it at. Well, Charles Rattray's old pamphlets from when they were still producing their own tobacco. Now, mind you, this is like before the shelf life was meant to be very long at all. Those old catalogs will tell you that the last couple bowls in a pound of their tobacco are the most enjoyable. And I found that to be true myself. Like when I open a 100-gram tin of Old Gowrie, the last third of the tin is my favorite. Like, I don't know, just naturally, if you keep it sealed, when you get to that point where you can just pull it out, stuff it in a pipe and light it up immediately, and it's well behaved and it still tastes great, I do think that there's some truth to that. A little bit of drying time is necessary.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Shane, that it's very personal, and it also depends on what kind of the tobacco. For example, like Virginia, I prefer on slightly moister side. English, I prefer on slightly drier side. But again, you have to find right moisture for each tobacco for yourself.
Yeah.
I just got a quick comment, actually. Shane, I just want to let you know I love watching Mystery Tobacco. I mean, I probably watch every single one of them since you guys started it. My concern is basically we have a lot of new pipe smoker that watch this stream. And what I want to actually tell them is that it takes time for you to develop that, nuances and everything about tobacco. I love single malt whiskey. Shane, you love Isla. I love Highland and Speyside. It's the same thing. I always correlate it with whiskey and tobacco. Just take your time. Be patient. I don't want the new pipe smoker to be discouraged because there's a lot of new pipe smokers. The first time they smoke, they always tell themselves, like, why are these people smelling and tasting? But it takes a little bit of time. And that is my concern, is I don't want them to be turned off and said that, I don't see that, I don't smell that. But it will take time. Just be patient. It will be there. It's the same thing with single malt. I have some friends that tried a single malt whiskey and said, well, even Brian Levine said, he prepared bourbon compared to single malt. He compared single malt like, putting gas in a Pinto. So for new pipe smoker, just take your time, be patient. It will be there, I promise you. And the reward outweigh the risk. And it will be there, I promise you. Just stick to it, and then I promise you will enjoy it eventually.
No, that's a really good point, Miguel. I wanted to add to that because there's kind of another myth or rumor or hang up that a lot of guys get, and that is how many relights they have. You know what I mean? Like being able to smoke a bowl with a single match and all this nonsense. That's always been like sort of a weird flex or a weird humble brag of experienced pipe smokers. And I mean, honestly, I smoke many pipes a day, and I've been doing it for a long time, like most of you. And the amount of times where I've lit a pipe once or twice and never had to relight it, I can count on probably one hand. I mean, it's just not that important. So it's the same thing with tasting, like the amount of flavors and the amount of nuance and how you can describe it, how you can articulate it, because that's another important thing here is learning how to pick up the flavors is part of it, and learning how to articulate what you're tasting is another part of it. And those come with experience. So if you smoke a pipe and you pick up one thing, you're doing it right. And honestly, you can focus on that and whether or not you enjoy that flavor. And then you kind of let your mind wander and see if you pick up something else besides that. But if you can identify one thing, and even that could be tobacco. Oh yeah, this tastes like tobacco, like a really nice, earthy, grassy tobacco flavor. It's the same thing with whiskey and bourbon. I mean, a lot of people that do tastings and say that it tastes smooth, we kind of like, the snobby ones of us out there, we kind of like say, okay, well, that's somebody that's maybe a little bit inexperienced because they're not able to articulate what they're picking up. But if you pick up one thing at all, vanilla, bread, like anything, then you're doing it and you're tasting it. And it's only going to get easier and better the more experience you have, because that's really the hard part here. The learning curve technique wise is huge with pipe smoking. And then just tasting and describing what you're tasting in any regard, food, whiskey, coffee, wine, whatever. I mean, how many of us, our first beer or our first cup of black coffee, did we say, oh, that's really interesting, notes of this and that? No, it just tastes like beer or coffee. It takes a long time to acquire those tastes and to be able to recognize them and to have context. I mean, you can't smoke, even somebody that smoked one tobacco for 40 years, like let's say you smoked Prince Albert for 40 years and you never tried anything else, you can probably describe Prince Albert pretty well. But that person who is experienced as a pipe smoker, if you put anything else in their pipe besides that, they have no other context at that point, and it's gonna be more difficult for them to articulate what they're tasting.
Yeah, it's like I started smoking cigars about 30 years ago. I enjoyed it, but they all tasted like cigars.
Yeah.
Now I can actually, very often I can find what kind of tobacco is in there, if it has any, like, let's say, Dominican Oloro San Vicente or any Jalapa or any Esteli, just by smelling cigar even before I light it.
Sure.
And sometimes I can even tell, like after a few puffs, I can tell who made it cigar, even if it comes without label. Same thing with the tobaccos. I used to smoke a lot of different pipe tobaccos. I enjoyed it. And finally, I started picking up individual flavors, and I found which tobaccos are right for me.
Exactly. But yeah, the experience, you cannot substitute that, no matter how hard you try or what little techniques and tips you might hear from other smokers. Just being patient and trying a lot of different things is the best way to get there.
I was commenting, and then I realized that my microphone was off. But I was just saying that is a really, I think, an important point for a lot of people to get, even if you're an experienced pipe smoker, that to be able to taste just one thing. And so you have both tastes, but also texture and mouthfeel. Like you could just, like for a lot of times when I first began smoking a pipe, I couldn't taste anything except like what Dimitri was just saying. It just was smoke in my mouth. It was something burning.
Tobacco, yeah.
But
yeah.
I could taste like different texture. And that was really interesting. We have a couple of questions over there on the live stream. One of them is what I thought was a really interesting question. Back to when you were talking about sort of the familiarity of different kinds of aromas or the associations of different kind of aromas. And the question was, are you starting from the standpoint of what is familiar, or are you starting from the standpoint of a blank slate and just sort of like what comes to you and then going for the adventure of the newness of it?
Yeah, no, it's definitely the former. I mean, I immediately try to hone in on something that's familiar and kind of give myself a bit of a roadmap. Just personally, I mean, I don't think there's one right way to do it, but I try to wrap my head instantly around what I'm smoking. And also, maybe this is just because of the mystery tobacco reviews all the time. That's the only thing you can do is try to like, put it in a box and like draw some lines and connect it to families of leaf, families of blenders. So for me, immediately, and of course, a lot of us have a lot of context when we're not smoking something blindly. You go in with a certain expectation as well, based on the tin description and the components used and, who made it, all that stuff. So no, I definitely try to go in immediately and try to like, put my feet on the ground, so to speak, and have a roadmap in front of me and say, okay, here's what I'm getting. And this can go in one of a couple directions. And I just kind of let that guide me.
Got it. Also, I just want to acknowledge it. Yes, I do see that my video is lagging terribly. I tried to fix my camera and I think I broke something else. So there you go. Well, cool. Any other thoughts, questions? Because otherwise we're going to move on to like, okay, now we've got through the
Let's
tin.
smoke it.
Let's smoke it. Exactly. So why don't you pick it up from there, brother?
So yeah, I think everybody who's got their pipe ready to go, if you're smoking it in a cob, I do recommend a little bit of a firmer pack than usual because the airflow in a cob is generally a lot more wide open than a pipe, especially if you pull the filter out or if you're smoking with a forever stem. For me, immediately this one, the sweet notes are the biggest thing that I get for the first 5 to 10 minutes of the smoke. A lot of caramel. Like I said, I do get that sweet corn, whether it's sweet corn, kettle corn, bourbon whiskey that has a high corn mash bill, whatever that is to you, that corny flavor, that sweet, maybe high fructose corn syrup's not the right way to go, but maybe that candy sweetness. And for me, it is really natural. Maybe even like a butterscotch kind of a flavor as well. The sort of vanilla and caramel notes that I pick up in the tin when I actually light this up, it's a pretty big butterscotch note for me. One other thing that I think maybe this is personal or just my own emotions here, like firing. But I also get, because of the burley, there's a good amount of nuttiness in the base, especially right off the bat, because I do think the base gets richer and deeper and a little spicier and a little earthier as the smoke progresses. I think this one gets kind of on the intense side at the last third of the bowl, and that's where things get really interesting for me. But in the beginning, I get a little bit of that nuttiness and maybe like pecan or pralines actually is another like confection or sweet that this reminds me of quite a bit. So I'm curious what everybody else is tasting, or if any of that sounds like it's not utter nonsense to you guys.
Gentlemen, that's your cue.
For whoever's smoking it on the call.
Shane, can you hear me, Shane?
I can hear you, David.
Okay, thanks. I'm not smoking what you got there, but as a general, I've been kind of concerned now that I hear what you're saying, probably for no great reason. But a lot of times I get into a tobacco and I have to be very careful, very studious in what I'm tasting. Otherwise, a lot of times I'm tasting my brain is telling me, okay, I'm tasting just ash. And it doesn't make any difference what it is, whether it's tobacco. I don't care if it's pizza. Doesn't make any difference what it is. I have an extremely, extremely blunt, very bland palate. And trying to pick up nuances of any kind of flavor is just practically impossible. It's just me. That's just the way I am. I've noticed that for a very long time. And I even have a problem. I put a couple of tablespoons of Hershey's powder in a large mug of coffee and stir it up real good. And sometimes I have to stop and I have to think, am I tasting the chocolate? It's that bad. Okay. Because the chocolate should boil you over. And I'm sitting there going, is there enough chocolate in there? Is there really, am I tasting it? And a lot of times my palate is either, I don't know if I want to call it blunt or bland or what I want to call it. But a lot of times I taste it. Okay, now this is going to sound weird. Don't laugh. There you are laughing already.
No, go ahead.
Dude, you can't say don't laugh and then not expect anything. I like the tobacco, the char light.
I tamp it down, I light it, and then I smoke it for a few minutes, and then I let it go out, and I tamp it down again and shake off the excess, light it up again. That's when I start to taste some of the nuances of the sweetness.
Yeah.
It's only after the second or third light do I start tasting some of the nuances of the sweetness.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now I'm a big aromatic lover. Okay, I love black Cavendish. I love, I'm into black gold maple, Cornell and Deal, black gold maple. Yeah. I'm into Peter Stokkebye 201. I'm into 1Q, that sort of thing. You get
okay.
The
yeah.
Okay. This is the type of thing that I'm kind of preferring. Okay. And like I'm saying, to a lot of people, this is kind of a subtle flavor. But to me, I'm not picking it up until the second or third light.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Right. And I'm glad to hear that the things that you were saying, because it was kind of bothering me.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm trying to figure out, did I burn out my taste buds? Did I burn out my palate? You know, and now I'm thinking maybe not.
No, maybe not. Probably not. I mean, and the thing too is any of us that have burned out our palate or our taste buds, they bounce back pretty quickly. I mean, going to like the Chicago Pipe Show and smoking 24 hours a day and sitting in a smoky room for 24 hours a day, I typically give myself 2 to 4 days off when I get home after a week of that, because at a certain point, you can only push your taste buds so far. I'm curious, David, do you retrohale much when you're smoking? Do you exhale through your nose?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I think exhaling through your nose is a big way that you can get a little bit more of that nuance, a little bit more of that sweetness. I would also say that I do find that a lot of times I actually have a pretty similar experience to you. I don't typically enjoy the first 5 or 10 minutes of a bowl nearly as much as I do the back half of it. Or like basically the whole middle chunk, and certain tobaccos smoke great to the bottom, and certain ones I just don't bother trying to smoke to the bottom because I've had enough, or the flavor's not changing enough, or it's not staying the same by the time it gets down to the last little bit. But I think that most of the time that I get big, huge bursts of flavor are after I tamp. And especially if I'm tamping without relighting. I think relights are good for tasting your tobacco because basically the closer that you can maintain the ember from barely being lit at all, the more flavor you're going to get. And that stands to reason. I mean, there's two things that generally make flavor and aroma go away: extreme cold and extreme heat. You know what I'm saying? If you burn something too hot, you're just getting rid of all of the chemical compounds and oils and everything that translate flavor to taste and to aroma and back and forth. So relighting gently, I think, also makes a pretty big difference. Keeping your pipe cool makes a pretty big difference. I've said a bunch of times, and this is not my trick, I learned it from a good friend. If you feel a lot of warmth in your pipe, the more warmth that you feel, the less flavor you're going to get. I mean, that's just how it goes. So keeping it cool, even if that means a lot more relights, is likely to help improve your experience with tasting things. And I also think that tamping very, very gently with very little pressure and sort of sparking back up that ember from nearly going out to suddenly burning again, those are when I get the most intense bursts of flavor, and it's easiest to taste a variety of things, not just ash or just tobacco.
Okay.
You might want to try the coffee beans trick and some seltzer water. I mean, another thing too is I know a lot of people that have sort of the same issue that you're describing. They tend to be able to taste their tobacco a little bit more clearly and a little bit more easily when they're pairing it with something like coffee or their favorite soda or a whiskey or whatever their preferred pairing of choice is. I do a lot of pairings personally, but not typically when I'm trying to evaluate a tobacco because obviously pairing it with something is going to color the flavor quite a bit. But I do know a lot of people that the bitterness of a black cup of coffee really highlights the sweetness in their tobacco. If they're really getting mostly earthy flavors or like a generic ash flavor when they're smoking their pipe, the coffee can kind of offset that and let you taste some of the sweeter notes. So just try some pairings maybe, and try slowing it way, way, way down. Those things might make a difference for you.
Hey, David. David, can I ask you a question just between you and me and the lamppost? And you can just nod, or if you want to. So sometimes if you are on certain meds, they will interfere with your tasting. I remember, for example, this is an extreme case, obviously, but my pop was on, was getting chemotherapy when he was diagnosed with cancer. And like, he had been a gourmand before that. He was like, oh, I love everything, right? It totally lost every kind of taste sensation. The only way I could get him to eat was to like pour jalapeno sauce all over his food just so that he could begin to taste something. And so I don't know if that applies to you or not, and I don't want to make any assumptions, but I was just thought I would throw that out there.
Possible.
So
Sure.
I'm curious, maybe we could throw out a bit of a comparison into this conversation. I love to hear from some of the guys who are hanging out. What tobaccos, other than Scarecrow, right? Just like, what do you smoke that has a big burst of flavor / aroma to you? Like Andrew, like, what do you smoke that, you really taste?
That's a good question, David. I smoke a lot of different tobaccos, but I would say, it's one thing. Shane mentioned the Sillins recently, and I would just say like Sillins Black. I know he did a review with tasting notes on it, but that's another aromatic. It's different. It's got a lot of key in it. And that one just immediately explosion of taste with, the flavors in that one, a lot of berry notes, but the creaminess and a lot of kia. I mean, that's a fantastic, rich aromatic. I think, I don't have Scarecrow. I wasn't smart enough to pull the trigger in the first day, but I know, but that's another one that I think has that rich terminology, works well with it. But a more general one, I would say, that I smoke a lot of is Haunted Bookshop, and that one, I get a lot of flavor from that as well. A lot of burly flavors.
I get a lot from Peter Heinrich's Dark Strong, Kentucky.
Yeah,
a lot of molasses.
Yep.
I just lit up my bowl of plum pudding. And I have to say, and this may sound weird, but I get a very strong, what I would describe as a barnyard taste. And I mean that in a good way.
Oh, yeah. Very familiar with the barnyard fun.
It sure does have it.
It's a very, very earthy, musty, I'm not as able to describe it as you are, but I just find certain tobaccos have a very, very mild taste. Like I just finished the Escudo, and it's so light and smooth. You switch to something like plum pudding, it's entirely different and much more of a heavier taste, I guess I would call it. But I do notice that's what I call the barnyard taste.
Yes, well, but thing is, the plum pudding, well, if you get just barnyard taste, it probably wouldn't be very pleasant. But thing is, it's well balanced by sweetness.
Yeah.
It has very nice, fruity sweetness mixed with that musty barnyard flavors, which makes it so pleasant.
Right. It has a kind of a sweet and sour taste to it, plus that earthiness.
Yeah, that fruity sweetness, plus that barnyard flavor, smokiness, all mixed together in excellent balance.
Right. I was actually going to write a tobacco review called "If You Like Latakia, You Might Be a Cowboy."
I had a girlfriend one time who used to say when she drinks certain kinds of red wine, she said, "Oh, this has got a dirty diapers smell to it."
Yikes.
It's a good time to put it down.
I never did understand that.
You guys ever have like noticed that when you first smoke a tobacco, you get like a certain flavor, and then you never get it again out of that tobacco? You try different pipes, this, that, and the other. The first time I smoked Larry's Blem, I was in love with it. There was like this like pine flavor coming through it, and I've never gotten it again. And I really enjoyed it the first time I smoked it.
I did notice that. I'd have to say, Justin, I've noticed that with some tobaccos. But again, I want to clearly put myself in the position of being a pretty much of a relative newbie, and don't go by my palate at all. But for example, I'm trying to think of the one that I was reviewing. It might have been St. James Flake. I'm not sure, but the first thing I noticed was this great vinegar kind of, not just the vinegar aroma, but the vinegar taste. And it made me think of Chinese food, and so I got this.
Some tobacco manufacturers actually use vinegar as antifungal in their tobaccos. So you might actually taste vinegar in certain tobaccos. And after a while, it evaporates and it's not there anymore. But also, aged Virginia can give you the vinegar flavor.
Yeah, particularly orange and red grades. That tanginess is very close to a vinegar flavor.
Yeah, I don't care for that vinegar flavor. I've noticed, especially with like Sutliff Reds, they're really just like salt and vinegar chips, ascorbic acid type of thing that burns the crap out of my mouth. It's like an assault.
Oh, see, and I love. I'll say French fries with malt vinegar, but chips with malt vinegar. I love it, man. That's such a that's starchy kind of a flavor, and then like the vinegar notes and like not a lot of sweetness. I really love those combinations.
Well, I love vinegar on food, like on Brussels sprouts, or whatever.
Right.
Whatever you put in vinegar, I love it on food. But like in the pipe, it just rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah. It can also come across as hot at a certain point too. And I think some people that smoke darker Virginia flakes and find them to be a little hot feeling, maybe not necessarily the temperature or the tongue bite, but through the retrohale, like a little too spicy or a little too hot through the retrohale. I think some of that comes from that too.
But I just smoked the Carolina Red, and that stuff is wonderful. That it's almost there in that sourness, but it's not. And it's not an assault on my senses, It's actually just really pleasant.
Yeah. Well, when you age Virginia, actually due to chemical processes, you get vinegar in there because starches break into simple sugars. If there are any kind of yeast or some other kind of bacteria and fungus can transform that sugar into alcohol, which will oxidize into vinegar. And you'll get small amounts of vinegar in tobacco. And to detect vinegar, you need very, very small amount because usually your palate and your nose is very sensitive to vinegar.
And Stoving does the same kind of thing. I like to use the Sutliff 515 RC1 as a base for a lot of the blends I do. And when I stove it, it sort of mimics the aging process. And I could just be patient and age it, but I actually like that. It gives you a sort of a portal into a sweetness from that vinegary kind of taste and smell.
I'd like just to say that I like the Sillam's Blue, the Sillam's Green, those aromatics. This one, I taste the caramel flavors to it, but it's unlike any other kind of aromatic. I don't get that strong aromatic flavor through the smoke like the other aromatics, but it's good.
And see, that's the thing. Like, I almost think calling this an aromatic is a mistake. I mean, honestly, the quality is there, especially when you open the tin and especially in the first like quarter of the bowl. But I'm about halfway through this bowl now. I'm not sure if anybody else has caught up to that yet. And if I picked this pipe up now somehow and started smoking it without having experienced the first quarter of the bowl, I would just think I was smoking a really nice Virginia Burley cake. If I could make like a little bit, we were talking about the barnyard funk and that earthiness and those umami flavors. I'm getting so much of the 2014 dark Burley and the 2015 white Burley. I might have those two vintages backwards, actually. I'm not sure off the top of my head. I'm getting so much of that now, and I do get a little bit of that barnyard funk, particularly on the side stream and through the retrohale. It's almost like if I walked into a state fair and I passed the kettle corn booth first, but now I'm by the petting zoo and I'm still downwind of the kettle corn being cooked, and it's just there a little tiny bit, but mostly it's the earthy flavors and the tanginess from the stove red Virginia. And like a bready quality too. I was going to say, like we were talking about those starchy notes. There was a moment maybe about 5-6 minutes ago where I was smelling like sticky rice even. It really just reminded me of like that sort of starchy and lightly sweet grain kind of a thing. But that's the reason I like this quite a bit, is because the room note is pleasant. The aroma stays just enough in the mix to give you those like gentle caramelized sugar notes and butterscotch notes. But really, it's just all about the tobacco. And I know that that's not what everyone wants out of an aromatic mixture, and that's kind of why this is polarizing, because either you're turned off by the flavoring right off the bat, or it's not enough of the flavoring sort of following the progression of the bowl. But for me, that's what I like about it. And I do think that by design, this was meant to be different. I mean, all of the warped blends are kind of along the lines of like, how do we take something that we're all familiar with and like turn it on its head or approach it from a slightly different angle? So yeah, for me, it's perfect, because by now, if those caramel and vanilla notes were as strong as they were in the beginning of the bowl, I'd be getting a little bit bored personally. And that's why I like this one, is it keeps me interested the whole way. It's a really dynamic smoke in a way that very few aromatics are outside of maybe Sillam's Black.
So, Jane, what are the components of the Scarecrow?
So that's the other thing about Scarecrow that's interesting is, you hear a lot about just Black Cavendish and Burley and maybe some Virginia and like general terms when you're talking about like maybe mass-produced aromatic mixtures. Scarecrow is a blend of red Virginia and Burley. There is a tiny bit of Cavendish in here. And I'm not 100% sure, but I think it is Cavendish that was made from Dominican cigar leaf. Because Kyle and Jeremy have used that a lot as a way to carry the flavoring and a way to add body and to control the burn rate in some of the other warped mixtures. That cigar leaf Cavendish is really magical stuff. But aside from that, the four main components here are, I think it's a 2017 red Virginia, and a portion of what's used in the blend is straight red, and a portion is that same vintage that's been stoved. So you have best of both worlds, in my opinion, here. You have the deeper, richer, tangier notes from the stove red Virginias, and you have a little bit of the youthful exuberance and the brighter character and the breadier and grassier character from the same vintage unstoved. And then there is
I just want to pause for just a moment to make sure that everybody wrote that down. The youthful exuberance.
Yeah, really. I mean, you're talking about blended whiskeys, like no shame if you love super, super old whiskey. But for me, and especially with Scotch, I would say even with Highland and Speyside Scotches, and Miguel can either tell me that I'm full of it or he can back me up here. A too much barrel character. It's possible for there to be too much barrel character, and it depends on your taste, But the stuff that I am most interested in is not necessarily smooth and that's it, or easy to approach or easy to drink and that's it, or that it's not just about how mature the flavor is. I love stuff that's somewhere in the middle. It still has a little bit of bite. It still has some of the brighter notes in the higher end of the register, and it's balanced. And I think that it's impossible for a 30-year-old whiskey to be balanced, in my opinion. It's all smooth. It's been matured. Yeah. There's a lot of oak character, or if it's sherry cask or whatever, ex-bourbon. And the barrel character comes forward too much, and the edges are rounded off too much in a lot of cases. So I think that just a base of stoved Virginias, me personally, I've never been a fan of just a base of stoved Virginias. I think a little bit of some unstoved leaf really gives you the whole picture right away. It also means, in my opinion, that the blend is going to have longer legs aging-wise. Because when you're stoving a tobacco, it's the same reason we talk about Latakia not having long legs for aging, because it's already been smoked. It's already been cured to like the maximum extreme of curing over smoke, of course. But in the case of a stove Virginia, it's the same thing. you're just not going to see a big difference as it rests in the tin. And I think that blending the same vintage stoved and unstoved in this particular mixture does a lot to give you a really approachable and smokable and mature tobacco right out of a can. But it keeps things interesting, and it also means that this is likely to age really well. The other thing that'll contribute to that here is the pressing. You don't see a lot of pressed aromatic tobaccos, and that's because they're not necessarily designed with the future in mind. But this one was, and I think that it is going to age extremely well. And I think that 5-10 years down the road, you're still going to get a bunch of caramel when you open the tin, but you're going to get a lot of earthy, tangy tobacco flavor as well after this one's been sitting. So yeah, we got sidetracked there. The other components are a white burley and a dark burley. And I believe the dark burley is 2014 and the white burley is 2015. So now that I'm down near the halfway point too, there's nothing chocolatey in the beginning of this smoke for me. But once I get down and I really start to taste the natural, chocolatey essence, and it's given a little bit of sweetness from the toppings here, I really get some of those really nice traditional chocolatey and nutty burley notes as well. But it's not just nutty and chocolatey, and it's not just tangy and bready. This is like a whole peanut butter sandwich here. And I mean, sometimes you get like the preserves too and the fruity notes. And yeah, I don't know. It's like the salty, sweet, earthy, tangy. Like this has a lot of those nice contrasting flavors juxtaposed in like the right way.
I'm going to open it up to the rest of the guys because I think this is a really interesting comment that you just made. I agree 100%. Some tobaccos are, I find, fairly consistent through the entire bowl. Scarecrow is one of those that definitely changes character as you smoke down through the bowl. And I often, often is a relative term because I've only, it's new for me and I only had a little bit of it. But I look forward to getting to the middle of the bowl because then I know it's going to get really interesting. What do you guys who've got some Scarecrow think?
One thing that I noticed was that in the bag, there were a couple of dark pieces, which is that the Cavendish, the black Cavendish?
There is a little bit of Cavendish in here, and some of the darker pieces is also the Stove Virginia as well.
Because the bag note definitely has a caramel or candy corn aroma.
Sure.
But like I'm maybe halfway or a little more than halfway, and I'm just tasting Virginias and Burley.
Exactly. The other thing too, and just because I have you right here, Stephen, now that you're halfway through, I also think one of the things about Scarecrow that's really interesting, and some of this is, I think there is a connection, just like there is with alcohol content in a whiskey, more alcohol, higher proof. It tends to carry a lot of the flavor a lot stronger, drop of water, sure. But when you're tasting a cask strength whiskey, you definitely get a lot more flavor than when you're tasting something that's diluted to like 40 or 43%. Same thing with this. I feel like the strength of the Burleys and the Virginias here, this is one of the more stout aromatic mixtures that I think I've ever smoked. I feel like I'm smoking a pretty heavy Burley blend after a bowl or two of Scarecrow.
Yeah.
So you mentioned it a little bit, but I think that there's one thing that we haven't really dived into, and that is the cigar leaf component. So because this is deliberately a collaboration between Jeremy and the other guy,
Kyle Gillis, yeah.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit more about like what do you think that gives it, man? Isn't that's part of the Scarecrow mystique?
And see, that's the thing. Scarecrow was not designed or intended to be like a cigar crossover mixture the same way that the Haunting or Until the End were, or even King Stride. And I would argue that King Stride is just as much about the dark fired leaf and the, Until the End is just as much about the dark fired leaf and the Perique as it is about the cigar component. I think that if there is a percentage of Black Cavendish here, because I may be misremembering that, it's very small. And it could be just straight up regular Black Cavendish, but I believe that it was the Dominican cigar leaf. I'm not 100% sure there. So to me, it doesn't add anything discernible cigar character wise. I mean, in most cases, a Black Cavendish is a good way to carry the flavor, just like Burley is a good way to carry the flavor, and to add a little bit of body and a little bit of depth in a supporting role. So the tiny bit of Cavendish that is in this blend, I'm not 100% sure. I could text Jeremy real quick and find out. I'm not 100% sure if it is the cigar leaf or not, but I don't think that is a characterizing flavor here at all. Like, I don't think that there is much cigar character here, other than the air cured leaf sort of flavors, which burley and cigar leaf are very close cousins. So yeah, for me, this one is all about the dark burleys and the stove red Virginias. I mean, that's what I get the most of: the earthiness, the light, unsweet chocolate, like the baker's cocoa kind of a flavor, and then the tanginess and the bready quality, and a little bit of some dark fruit notes from the Virginias. So yeah, this isn't meant to be really a cigar pipe tobacco mashup kind of a mixture. And if they used that Dominican Black Cavendish, it's just because that is something that they have both, kind of fallen in love with over the course of this project.
Well, I think didn't Scarecrow, but like from my experience with the tobaccos, I can assume that cigar leaf Cavendish, that will give flavor somewhat similar to Andouille. Like Andouille process, basically made from Andouille tobacco made from cigar leaf, but it doesn't taste anything like any cigar leaf because of that fermentation and the high pressure. So I assume that cigar leaf Cavendish will be similar to Andouille, but with less pronounced flavor.
That's right. That's right, Dimitri. I think that when I've smoked the cigar leaf Cavendish straight, it is sort of a weird amalgam of air cured and Oriental type flavors. Maybe a little sharper and a little more of the fermented quality, but it is very different from just straight black Cavendish that we're all sort of used to. It is a lot spicier. It's a lot spicier. It's a lot more herbal than a straight black Cavendish is.
Yeah, I did smoke straight Andouille from Dominican Republic. So I know exactly. Yes, it has punch, a lot of spice, but your Cavendish process should give similar flavor with less intensity.
Now that I'm at the bottom of the bowl, I'm picking up the chocolate all of a sudden. And the other question I have is, when you break up your tobacco like this one, and you've got all these different components in there, you're not going to get the same percentage of each component with each bowl. It's going to be different, right? So so I would imagine that each bowl is going to taste a little bit different.
It's funny that you brought that up because my experience with Scarecrow so far, I've smoked through 2.5 tins by now. And when the Smoking Pipes crew was driving up to the Richmond Pipe Show in Virginia earlier this month, most of us were only smoking Scarecrow. Like, it had just come out, and that's what we had opened. And honestly, in mixed company in the car, it didn't smell that bad. So it was like, normally we try to say, okay, for those of us that aren't smokers here, like, just have the common courtesy and don't smoke nightcap or whatever. It is something that has a nice aroma. So a lot of us were smoking it over and over again that entire weekend. And I think that it is a very, I say dynamic because like that's a nicer and maybe slightly more pretentious way of saying that it's all over the damn place. It really is. Like, it is a very difficult to pin down tobacco. The caramel notes, like I said, the butterscotch flavor and the earthiness are the only things that I've experienced like in spades every time I've smoked it. Every other experience has been slightly different. I think that is maybe the crumble cake that does that a little bit too, like what you're describing about the blend being mixed up as it is. And, you pull off a corner versus the other corner, who knows what you're getting in there. But in terms of aromatic mixtures, I have never experienced one except for maybe Sillam's Black. And even that is like sort of predictable after you've smoked a few bowls. It's a very interesting blend and it is complex, but it is kind of about the same regardless of the size chamber that you're smoking it in and like what time of day. Scarecrow is all over the place, man. It's a really interesting and difficult to pin down blend. I think that nearly every bowl I've smoked has been slightly different.
Let me pop in for just a second here because we're getting close to that magical hour. Not yet, so don't you guys go anywhere. But I do want to sort of make sure I make some announcements before we get going. That next weekend is the weekend of the Dallas Pipe Show, and I will be there. So once again, we'll have Miguel and Tim and David helping to be the hosts of the Zoom room and the live stream, and I will be your roving reporter and have all kinds of new gear. I'm so excited. New camera, new rig, new microphones, and so just possibly we might get a good stream out of all that kind of stuff. And that's my dog out there going, "Come on, Dad, you're almost done here." What else was I going to say? Then when we come back after that, we've got the month of November coming up, and we have a virtual tour of Missouri Meerschaum coming up, and some other surprise guests that we'll talk about when I get back.
Very cool.
In the last few minutes, Shane, maybe we could talk about this, and I know that you've talked about this a little bit before, but an insight into the planning that SmokingPipes.com and Cornell and Deal have about the release of some of these seasonal blends. So here's the bad news about Scarecrow: you can't get any more. You have to
For
go
now.
and barter. Oh, for now. Oh,
For now.
For now. You heard it here first, folks. For now. So obviously, Scarecrow is a hit, other than for Mike Rizzo, but for everybody else, Scarecrow is a big hit. And so talk about that a little bit, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. Talk about Scarecrow being a hit, or about the release schedule.
About releasing and what people can anticipate when they find a tobacco that they really like, if it's a seasonal blend, and et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, I think it's pretty obvious by now that the popularity of the seasonal blends, particularly the stuff that Cornell and Deal does, you might not be able to count on every single one of those blends being available at the same time every year like clockwork. But and that goes into complications with production and with sourcing things. I think that it's likely that most of the blends that you're hearing a lot of acclaim for, and a lot of people sort of hollering for more, the chances that they will be available again sometime down the road are very high. It's just a matter of making it happen and finding the production schedule. And I think everybody's aware of what the worldwide supply chains look like right now. It's pretty complicated. It's bleak in some cases, but and I'm not just talking about tobacco here. I mean, if these companies put out a product and it's well received and everybody likes it, the chances of it coming back are really high. It's just a matter of when it can fit into the production schedule, and whether or not it's doable, whether or not the components are available or comparable components are available. I mean, I think that people may underestimate how much of a head blender, let's use Jeremy in this case, how much of his job is creating new things and how much of his job is maintaining a supply of adequate leaf for various projects. He spends a lot of time, smoking samples and visiting farmers and trying to figure out a way to, maybe do a new spin. In this case, with Caroline Red Flake with Perique this year, it was a different blend than last year because last year they used a 18-year-old barrel of Perique, and those just aren't lying around everywhere. And I've said already a couple times that I actually may prefer this year's version, which uses a much younger vintage of Perique, but it's a very different type of Perique. So anyway, I think that continuing to see things like, okay, you have Sun Bear and then you have Sun Bear Black Locust. There can be maybe in the future a couple of different versions, maybe returning to an older version of these blends. And I think the main thing right now that all of these companies are interested in, including Smoking Pipes as the vehicle for some of these releases, it's just keeping things fresh and keeping them interesting, and being able to supply everybody with what they're interested in. Now, sometimes we don't meet that demand. I think it's difficult in a lot of cases for a lot of different reasons. But the point is, I think the seasonality of pipe tobacco blends is becoming a much bigger thing, which is interesting because that's sort of how it used to be. When all of this was, much more popular, and the pipe tobacco market was much less niche and much more mainstream, you did have a lot of like Christmas blends and Father's Day blends and seasonal releases. And as the cigar boom happened and the pipe side of the business sort of shrunk a little bit in the late 80s and early 90s, the variety of what was available started to dramatically change. That's why there was a long period of time without certain brands. We've seen a revival of a lot of older brands in the last 10 years. And that's just because the demand is up. So as long as everybody's engaged and the demand is up and people are interested in this kind of stuff, the companies are going to do it and they're going to make it. And I think that we've already seen these new release schedules being a little bit more crowded than they used to be. And I think that if you're trying to save your money, maybe that's problematic. But for the health of the hobby and the health of the industry, it's really good that the market can bear and support a lot of really interesting projects and make it obvious to the people behind them that they have that space to play and that they can move that product, because ultimately we have to be able to move the product. Otherwise it's not worth it. Right.
So will we see something additional this year for the Christmas holiday? I know you've already released
We Three Kings.
Yeah. Have you got anything new coming?
Yes. So I will go ahead and divulge a little bit of info here, because it's like, 72 hours away or something like that. You guys might remember that for the last many years, in the months of November and December, SmokingPipes.com has done a promotion with Peterson Pipes, where if you buy a Peterson pipe, you get a tin of tobacco. Many years ago, we used to do the Peterson tobacco blends. And for the last couple of years, we've done some limited edition Cornell and Deal production holiday mixtures that were not available outside of this promotion. So this year we're doing that again. Wintertime Reserve is going to be available as giveaways along with the purchase of a Peterson pipe. And we have 4 new blends this year that have never been released or seen before. Really interesting stuff. I'll hold back on the details there, but as you can imagine, with 4 blends, there's probably something there for everybody. But this coming Monday with our usual newsletter, you'll see all of that info, and those will be available for the months of November and December. I think there's also a couple of releases coming before the end of the year. I'm trying to remember exactly what they are. Between pipes and pipe tobacco, the schedule has been kind of crazy, especially this time of year. Something like Scarecrow or something like Carolina Red Flake with Perique, most of the most substantial, limited releases are behind us for the year. But there are a handful of cool things coming up in the next few weeks for sure.
Ian, could you talk about the Dunbarton stuff that's coming out in a couple of days?
Yes. That I am crazy excited for. I think that these are going to be very, very interesting products for both cigar smokers and pipe smokers, and for the people that enjoy both with a regular frequency. They're going to be amazing. So I'm trying to think. Early 2020, Steve Saka, who you might know as he used to work for JR Cigars. He was also a C-list executive at Drew Estate for many years during their heyday. He's credited with the Liga Privada line and a lot of the really high-end cigars that Drew Estate was not originally known for, because they sort of came to popularity through the Acid line. So a lot of the hardcore, purists and traditionalists out there that know Drew Estate because of Undercrown and Liga Privada and all of those really high-end premium blends. Steve had a hand in a lot of that stuff, and he has been on his own for a number of years now under the brand Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. And the cigars that he's made are some of the finest available today, mostly Nicaraguan leaf. One of he and Jeremy are very, very similar in the sense that they don't just limit themselves to the components that are readily available. They work directly with farmers to source, rare leaf and high quality leaf. And Steve actually has a lot of his own production of actual tobacco planting and harvesting. And a lot of the tobaccos that are used in his cigars, he provides to the factories that roll the cigars. So he's not just going through what they have laying around. He's bringing to the table leaf that he has overseen for many, many years, from hybridizing and seedlings to actual crops and harvesting and picking through the bales himself. So him and Jeremy connecting on this Stillwell Star project worked out really well, because they approached their craft very similarly. They're also both very transparent about what they do and what's in the products. And Steve has been, in his own words, a closeted pipe smoker since his early days of being a youth joining the Navy right out of school. He was a pipe smoker for many years and is a big fan of a lot of Cornell and Diehl pipe tobaccos. We found out when we met him. Basically, we met him because we wanted to carry his cigars. And in the course of getting that rolling and bringing on the brand for smokingpipes.com, he realized that we also owned Cornell and Diehl and that we were like the pipe tobacco guys. So we started having some conversations about that. And he shared with us that for many, many years, he has been rolling on his own at these factories that handle his production, a personal stash of cigars that included premium pipe tobacco in them. Like he would just have some pipe tobaccos that he liked, play around with blending them into the cigars, and then they would make, a very small sample size of these kind of cigars for him to smoke. So finding out that was kind of a hobby of his and it had never been released before, we started to talk and sample things together, and he came out and visited us and worked with Jeremy extensively, and those guys went back and forth on a million different samples. And then he himself started on the blending process, and he said that there's 4 Stillwell Star cigars coming out next week. And to get to those 4 finished products, somewhere around 200 different versions of what these cigars could have been. And drilling down to those individual 4 concepts that we ended up with in the final product, he said about a dozen versions of each of those once he drilled down on what he was trying to accomplish. So basically, what we ended up with is a super premium pipe tobacco cigar. And that's really never been done before. There's been a lot of gimmicky things out there where they've added some Perique or added some Latakia to a cigar, but nobody's ever done it this way and with this attention to detail and with this high quality a leaf. So I've been smoking them since they were released in July. They weren't released for sale, but within the industry, a couple of samples floating around and also being involved in the project. And they are unlike anything I've ever smoked, and all of them are amazing. Again, I really didn't expect to enjoy the aromatic as much as I did, and the aromatic is outstanding. The English version of the cigar is outstanding. There is a Bayou, which is a Virginia Perique, and there is also a Navy mixture, which is a Stowe Virginia with some rum and a little bit of Latakia.
And what's the date on those?
November 5th. You can only get them at smokingpipes.com on November 5th. And then we're also doing a release party here at our physical retail store where Steve's coming down to hang out with us. And we're selling tickets to that for anybody who can make it or who is a local. But yeah, November 5th, these are going to sell out very, very quickly, I'm afraid. We will have more once the shipment from Nicaragua arrives later this month. But man, these are incredible. If you're a cigar guy at all, or if you're a pipe smoker at all, this is something you can't miss. I mean, it's the most interesting and most challenging premium tobacco product that I've experienced maybe ever. It's so good. I'm really looking forward to hearing what people think of them because they're weird and they're different, but they're tasty.
So this is another reason why you guys should make sure that you're a member of the Virtual Pipe Club so that you can hear these kinds of news items. And so I guess the message, our wrap-up message is set on November 4th, set your alarm clock for 11:59 p.m. so that you can get your butt up and order those cigars.
I will say that that's not necessary on this one. So because this is exclusive to Smoking Pipes, the releases, they will be nationally available later on. But the release of Stillwell Star is exclusive to smokingpipes.com. We're not going to release this one at midnight. This one will be released early in the day on Friday. It may be gone by Friday afternoon, but we're also going to put a limit on these. So hopefully as many people as possible can try them.
Awesome. Well, usually at the end of the show like this, I always ask the guest if they would mind coming back, but I don't think I'm going to have to ask Shane that question.
Yeah, you haven't been able to get rid of me.
I haven't been. No, So all kidding aside, there have been so many comments on the live stream about how much they're enjoying today's meeting and all the things that you came to share with me. So thank you, brother. And also, not for nothing, one of the comments said that you need to put out an audiobook. And
yes.
And so we should talk about that. And also your event that you're having with Steve, Steve Saka.
Steve Saka.
Steve Saka. I get that confused with Chris Saka, who's internet fame. That you can do a live stream that you have to pay money for. So if you're doing ticket sales for a special event at smokypipes.com, you can do the virtual special event at smokypipes.com as well. And I'd be happy to consult on that project if you.
Oh, that's interesting. We'll have to keep that. I don't know if we have enough time to put that together in like 4 days, but Steve and Jeremy and I and Tim Vanderpool, who's our smokingpipes.com cigar specialist and the manager of our retail store, the four of us sat down on Thursday night and did a Facebook Live for about 2 hours. So if you're interested in the project and in the Stillwell Star like story, there's some good info in that too. If you want to go to smokingpipes.com's Facebook page, we did a virtual, sort of roundtable about the project a couple nights ago. And like I said, Steve and Jeremy, man, those guys, they're a fountain of knowledge on both sides of the industry. So just listening to them talk, I mean, the dudes out there that might think that I know my way around this kind of stuff, like I'm a student compared to these guys. It's really interesting to hear how they approached it and the detail that they go into what a project like this looks like and how the challenges they faced. And, this is groundbreaking territory, really. Like I said, people have done it before, but not like this.
Shane, I just want to say something about your contribution to this hobby. I just want to thank you. Everything that you do to this hobby actually is helping a lot of new pipe smokers. I just want to say that.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Before the end of the meeting, can I just ask one more question about tasting and stuff?
Yeah, let's do it.
Shane, you have a habit of like smelling the pipe. And what are you getting out of that? When I try that, all I get is like a blast of nasty. What do you get?
Really? Oh, see, like I said, I mean, tasting a whiskey or tasting a wine, going back and forth between your palate and your nose is super important. And I do that through the entire glass of whatever I'm drinking. I've also talked a little bit about tea before, which is another one of my great loves, maybe my number one great love. I had a nice long tea session this morning before I came over here. And when I'm brewing in a clay teapot, I do the same thing. And it's a trick that I learned from watching other more experienced people. Same thing with the pipe, retrohaling, breath smoking, covering your bowl to relight a little bit without actually having to touch the flame to the tobacco again, breathing through the pipe. I try to catch whiffs of the side stream because it gives me a different olfactory sense than just exhaling through my nose. So I tend to get a little more of the bass notes when I get a whiff of the side stream, and it only works if barely any smoke is coming out. If there's a lot of volume coming out, you're going to singe your nostrils. But a little bit. I also try to smell the chamber of the pipe before I relight too. So just a little bit. Like right now, I'm at the very bottom of the bowl, and it's really mostly just earth that I'm getting at this point. Like it's probably mostly ash in here. But like I said, exhaling through the nose gives me a different sensation. Smelling the side stream gives me a different sensation. Really small puffs and really voluminous puffs give a different sensation. So I just tried to like get in there and taste and smell as many different ways as I can. And like I said, with teapots, especially clay ones, when I'm brewing tea, it's the same thing too. Like I drink the tea, I taste it, wash it around on your palate, exhale through your nose as you swallow, like one does with wine and whiskey, to kind of let the aromas that are on your palate pass through the nasal passages as you're swallowing. But I find that I get a really good idea and a really good preview of the tea that I'm drinking when I pick up the warm lid and give that a smell, because it's kind of capturing a lot of the aroma and the flavor compounds that are coming off of those hot leaves after the teapot's been emptied. And you get like a little bit of a preview there. And I do the same thing with the pipe. Same thing with the cigar. Cold draw, you got to draw through your cigar before you light it. Smell the foot. You know what I mean? Smell the wrapper. Like everything, every angle that you can come at these things from is going to give you a different idea of what's there. And it kind of gives you a bigger picture, and it starts to tie some of those flavors together. So yeah, I always give that a little bit of a smell, because it's like the difference between tasting the cookies out of the oven and like kind of hovering over it while they're cooking and getting the smell, So I just try different things. I mean, sometimes it looks funky and silly and maybe super pretentious, but I find that as much as I can understand what I'm tasting, the better. And the side stream, I think, is a little bit informative in a way that the other parts of the smoke are not.
Interesting.
There you go, man.
Thanks.
That's a great place for us to end for today. Again, Shane, thank you so much. I ran into Shane for the first time. I mean, we've been meeting together on the Virtual Pipe Club meetings for like over a year and a half now.
Oh yeah.
And we actually had a chance to sit in the same physical space at Richmond, and that was a real treat. But he was working, so he was busy, and I didn't want to, get into his business while he was there. But we hung out a little bit, and I'm looking forward to the next time we can do that. Okay, so again, next week I'll be in Dallas for the Dallas Pipe Show, and I'll be doing some live streaming from there. I'm also going to capture some video of all of the tables and everything that's going on there. So we'll have a little bit of a video day on the weekend that I come back. But for now, tomorrow is Halloween. And I don't know how many of you are planning on going out trick-or-treating, but some people might be coming to your house for trick-or-treating. And there's no event of the year that probably more the very definition of a super spreader event than Halloween is.
Sure.
Which leads me
be safe, everybody.
I know, right? So I the same thing I say every weekend. The policy of the Virtual Pipe Club is that we are not political. We don't bring up any political conversations or anything. All I want you guys to do is just be safe. You got so many options. You can get the vaccine or not get the vaccine. You can wash your hands. You can put on the mask. You can wear a Halloween mask. Whatever your choice is, stay safe, man, because we want to see you back next week. We love you, and I'll see you next weekend. Peace.
Bye.
See you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, Shane.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
Great
Hey,
meeting.
Shane,
Great meeting.
Bye now.
Shane, thanks very much, Shane.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Shane. Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it, Shane. Thank you.
Bye for now.
See you guys.
That was a good one.